Alright, this video is about the Israel National Trail. I recently through hiked it from November 16th through December 23rd, 2018, and I thought I'd make a video to try to help others who may be interested in through hiking or backpacking in Israel. One of the questions a lot of people asked me or had concerns about is your passport. And some countries don't allow Israeli stamps, may not allow you to enter their country. And currently Israel is not stamping passports. They give you a small kind of like business card with your photo and your name that you keep with you as you travel throughout the country. So your passport won't be stamped if you visit Israel. So if you're worried about that. Hebrew, Arabic, I don't speak either. I tell people I barely speak English. So it's definitely not necessary to get around. A lot of English-speaking Israelis will tell you that everyone speaks English, but I did run into a lot of people that were didn't speak English. But there's always someone around who speaks a little bit of English, like the rest of the world, and everyone was willing to help. And so it's no big deal that you don't speak the local language. So I don't feel like you need to speak Hebrew or Arabic. When to hike the Israel National Trail? I think you could probably do it year-round. There is some snow that can happen, but it's light dusting snow. It won't last but a couple of days, and that's all the way in the north. Again, I hiked it from November through the end of December, and I don't feel like it ever got below 40 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's weather-wise, it's not bad. So I do think you can hike it year-round, just the snow in the north, and maybe in the desert, maybe July, August, that would be an issue for some. But I think it is a great trail that you probably could hike year-round. I think most of the people start kind of towards the end of winter, right into the spring, to see the flowers bloom, that kind of time. I hiked it November to December because of my job, and that's the time I had off from work. So I was glad that I was able to do it, and I would definitely recommend that you could go then. Gear, I made a video right before I left, so check the channel out. It talks about all the gear that I took. I didn't take a tent, stuff like that. I don't have a stove, stuff like that. If you don't know about me, my name is Billy, by the way. Sorry I didn't introduce myself. But I tell people that I've walked the United States twice. I've done the Appalachian Pacific Trail. I bicycled across the United States, and I bicycled all the way down to Santiago, Chile. I've also bicycled across Australia. I've walked New Zealand. I bicycled across Europe. And I went to Israel because I was interested in trying to get across the Middle East. And so I found out they had a trail there, and I thought it was too small to bicycle, so I decided to walk. And the trail, I'm not sure the exact, it's anywhere from 600 to 700 miles, maybe 650, something like that. So I decided to walk it. But if you want to know about my gear, definitely check out, I tell you the items that I took. And I'll talk a little bit more, hopefully throughout the video, about what I learned with my gear, if I would change anything, something like that. Where to sleep. So that's always a big issue when you go into other countries, you know, designated campgrounds, hotels, hostels, bed and breakfasts, that kind of thing. So to me, kind of the trail is divided into two sections. It's the north section, that's from the north of Israel. Tel Dan is the official start, to Jerusalem, and then from Jerusalem to Eilat. So in the north, it's fairly easy. In small towns, you're going to find more bed and breakfasts, so you're almost going to pay $100 US. So you're going to pay pretty heavily if you want to sleep in a small town, a moshav or kibbutz. And then the larger cities in the north, Haifa, Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, they have hostels, hotels, that kind of thing. And then camping in the south, it's designated camping areas, and again, the major towns will have hostels or hotels. And then the smaller ones, if you're looking to stay inside, will be more bed and breakfast. I just pretty much slept on the ground. I literally just sleep on an inflatable mattress and a sleeping bag. I don't start a fire or anything like that. So that's where I stayed, and then I would stay in hostels in major towns, and if I wanted some peace and quiet, I would get a hotel room. So it's no big deal to me, camping, finding a place to stay. Cell phone reception in the north section, it's great. You could literally call home and text anytime you wanted to all day long. And then till you got to Jerusalem, and then once you hit the desert, you're going to lose it. Anytime you go into a canyon, you may lose it for a couple hours. You could use it for 1 to 2 days, just depending how long you spend. But the cell phone reception to me was great. It's only getting better throughout as time progresses. So, and I use Google Fi because I do a lot of traveling, and it seems to really work for me currently. Excuse me. So that's what I use, so I don't have to buy a SIM card. I used to buy SIM cards when I landed, and that was always difficult. But as mobile data gets better, it makes it easier, and the Israel National Trail is great for a cell phone if you're interested in that. Getting to the trailhead, again, I thought that was easy. There's buses in Israel. I would definitely recommend a bus card. It's 5 shekels. I didn't get it till later on, until the journey, but it keeps you from carrying change, and it keeps you from having to I had to translate to people who I couldn't communicate with them. Just swiping the card, stuff like that with some of the bus drivers made it easier on me, and hopefully it made it easier for them. But I landed in Tel Aviv and then took the bus up to Tel Dan. I got food right before I got to Tel Dan. There's a mall in the town before, and actually went up to Mount Hermon and got the bus, and I went to the last closest stop, and then I walked 5 miles up Mount Hermon, and it was foggy that day, and then I walked 18 miles back to Tel Dan the first day because Mount Hermon's the tallest mountain, and I wanted to start at the tallest mountain. I don't understand why the trail doesn't start there, but anyways, it's not difficult. I did have to walk a couple miles to get to the top of Mount Hermon, but I'm sure you could hitchhike. But the day I went, it was really foggy, like you could barely see 20 feet in front of you, and Mount Hermon is basically a one-way road because it's at the border. But if people know what you're doing, I'm sure they're willing to help you. But I just walked it. I got off at the closest bus stop that I could find, and then walked, and then made it to Tel Dan. Unfortunately, there's a little bit of road walking, and the time I went, it was basically from like 6 in the morning till 4:30, like 6:30 to 4:30 was the amount of light I had. I had basically 10 hours of light, so I did have to stop at 4:30 in the afternoon. It's quite early to stop, so I did find myself, unfortunately, walking a little bit in the dark, especially on that first day when because I took a bus from Tel Aviv all the way to Mount Hermon and then walked, so it was just a long day, and then I had to tack on another 18 miles. But getting to the trailheads is easy. If you want to do it northbound to a lot, there's a bus I rode. It's 70 shekels. It takes about 4.5 hours, and it takes you from Tel Aviv, the central bus station, down to the Elat central bus station. So getting to trailheads is some of the easiest trailhead journeys I've ever had. So it took me 38 days to do the trail. I walked probably 28 to 30 days of that. I left my socks in Tel Dan at the bed and breakfast I stayed at the first night. So literally before I even officially got on the trail, I only have one pair of socks, and I left them in the closet drying because I noted that we were going to do I had to do some creek crossings on the trail, so I didn't wear socks, and of course I left them, so I got blisters right away from day one, and my feet ended up being a problem pretty much till the very end. I bought socks, and I would continue to get blisters throughout the trail, so I stopped a lot for my feet to heal up. So it took me 38 days all from Tel Aviv to Mount Hermon, all the way to Elat, and then back to Tel Aviv. But I probably only walked 28 to 30 days. So that's just to give you a guide of what I did to help you out. I think the book is like 45 days or more. So the weather, I would say it was great weather. Again, I don't think it got below 40 degrees Fahrenheit, so it's not miserably cold, and it didn't get super hot. I've been up to 133 in Australia when I was bicycling, so I do know a little bit about being warm, and it was definitely nowhere near that. But saying that, I did feel quite warm in the desert some days, so it may bother some of you. I don't wear sunscreen, and I don't use bug spray. So, but I do have a sun hat, so you definitely take that consideration. Even though it was the winter time, you're definitely going to get sun. And also, I didn't take a tent because I thought it'll probably rain 5 days, and I thought there would just be partial days, and it's not going to rain, 24 hours straight. But out of the 38 days, it rained 10 plus days. So that was a little bit of a learner for me. So, and it rains mainly in the north. Once you get south of Jerusalem, it's the desert. So I think it rained once or maybe twice in the desert. But it definitely rained more than I expected. So don't be foolish like I was and think it may not rain. But again, I was hiking November to December, and December to February is considered, I think, the rainy season there. But I thought I was getting before the rainy season. The rainy season does matter sometimes, especially when you're doing these canyons. I got videos sent from other people of I was walking dry riverbed sections, and they were literally like a meter, a couple feet deep of rain, just with one rain. So the rain it definitely affects it. So it's definitely, it can rain is all I'm getting across, and it rained way more than I expected it to. Animals, this always happens. People always tell you what to look out for. I'm always more scared of humans, but I saw the most of the animal kingdom I saw were wild pigs, and this was again in the north, and until you get used to them, they'll scare you a little bit, but they never bothered me. I saw their young and all that stuff. Coyotes, again, if you're not around coyotes, you'll hear them at night screaming and wailing, that kind of thing, but you'll get used to it at night. The first few nights it may freak you out a little bit, but again, those guys are in the north. In the south, it's foxes, more foxes than coyotes, and the foxes, I had one come within feet, like maybe 15 feet of, again, I had to sleep on the ground, I don't have anything surrounding me. He came really close to me, and it shocked me a little bit because I was on like a mountain. There was just nothing up there. There was no reason for him to be up there, and he actually came back twice, so that scared me, as in I didn't want him to steal my shoes or my food at night. So you do have to worry about foxes as far as that. They tell you about scorpions in the desert. This time of year I didn't see any scorpions. Snakes, I did see a couple snakes, but again, that was in the north, and all the snakes were either babies. The largest one I saw was a couple feet, and it ran away from me right away as soon as it realized that I was around it. So, but I only saw a handful of snakes. Mosquitoes, the most mosquitoes I actually saw or encountered were in towns. Like Haifa, I think, was the worst place for mosquitoes, and it's not crazy mosquitoes. Like I've done the John Muir Trail where there's literally hundreds, if not thousands, and I don't wear bug spray, so I'm wearing full rain gear and a net and stuff like that, and it's absolutely miserable. In Australia, in the Nullarbor, I've had thousands of flies flying on my nose and my ears and stuff like that. It's nothing like that. It's maybe 10 mosquitoes, maybe 10 flies when you get to the desert, and they're real small. They're not like horse flies. They're not biting or anything. They are a nuisance. They may distract you a little bit, but as far as this, ruining your day, they definitely don't do that. So that was it for animals, pretty much. Trail markings, the blazes, they're orange, blue, and white. And it's not, compared to the other trails that I've walked, it's not, I don't know, it's not as numerous, I guess, because the trail seems to leak other trails throughout the country. The trail is, about 650 miles, but it only is, I think, 260 miles if you just did as the crow flies from the north to the south. That's the furthest distance. So the trail really zigzags back and forth. I have a map. I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see it. But the trail starts all the way up here in Mount Hermon. It's right here at the very top, right at the Syria-Lebanon border. Then it comes down to the Sea of Galilee, and then it goes actually further south to Mount Tabor. I know I'm pronouncing everything wrong. And then it heads almost up to Haifa. And then from Haifa, you're going to go down the coast to Tel Aviv, and then you're going to cut across back through the mountains until you hit Jerusalem. And then after Jerusalem, it's desert all the way down to Eilat. So that's how kind of the trail is divided up into the north and then the south here. But the trail markings, they're not frequent, the orange blue. So in my mind, if I'm trying to help others, you really need to pay attention to the trail markings you're on. So you may be on the INT, but you may be on a white, green, white. And then all of a sudden, the INT may turn to the left, and it doesn't make any sense to you that it turns to the left, but it does. So really pay attention to the blazes, and I think all but one time I can remember you only got one blaze to tell you. It didn't like tell you in advance, hey, it's going to turn left. Like some other trails give you a warning that something different is going to happen. So pay attention to the blazes. As far as, I'll go ahead and talk about the guidebooks, what I recommend. So before I left, I bought the red book because it was supposedly the only book in English about the trail. I wouldn't recommend this. This thing is pretty expensive. It's like 40 to 50 US dollars on the internet, and I wouldn't recommend it to anyone. I actually didn't end up using it. What I recommend is there's an app for the Israel National Trail app. It has most of it in English. People do comment in Hebrew. But it's great because you can be offline, no cell phone data reception, and you can use your GPS on your phone and track the trail. So I would follow the blazes, and if I ever felt confused, I would use my phone and see, oh, the trail's to the left, or the trail turned to the left, or the trail's to my right. So I use blazes, then I use the INT app. Also, Google Maps was pretty good. I actually didn't use the INT app until I got to Jerusalem because I'm not a big app guy. I was like, but anyways, it actually was the best out of all those. The book and Google Maps. Google Maps is pretty good. It gives you a generic line, and again, you can use your GPS, that kind of thing. But it doesn't, unless you preset, it doesn't cache the memory like the app does. The app caches the memory, so you don't have to have data, which that becomes important when you start going through canyons and stuff. So I recommend the app. What's also great about the app is Trail Angels. It gives you their phone numbers. I didn't use Trail Angels at all, but this trail, from my understanding, talking to a couple other people, it's Trail Angels are big, and a lot of people don't actually camp unless they have to camp outside, and you could almost do the whole trail through Trail Angels and not camp outside for a lot of it. So that's in the app too if you're interested in that. So that's all I would do is the INT app and Google Maps. The book is great because it gives you a little bit of history of what you're walking through, what you're seeing, that kind of thing, but it's definitely not necessary. The one thing I do warn about is if you use your phone, and I do all these things mainly solo, just by myself. If you're with someone else, it's not such a big deal, but why I'm saying it is that if something happens to your phone, like literally I was swimming in a canyon pools, getting everything wet. I'm standing on cliffs that could easily drop my phone. So if you do lose that, that could be a big issue, and that may be why you want to take paper or something like that, or a backup phone if you're on your own. Again, I just use my phone, that kind of thing. But hopefully that'll help you. That's all you need is the INT app and Google Maps, and then just be careful because that is your only resource. That's all you take if you don't take any paper items. But the trail, like I said, it zigzags back and forth, and you'll even go north as you're headed southbound. So it's an interesting trail. It stays true to the very end. The last day, I thought, oh, I'm just going to finish it off. The last, I think it was 17 miles I had to do. But I was climbing down ladders, climbing up mountains, not climbing, they're hills, but walking up hills all the way to the very end into a lot. So the trail is great for that. They don't just skirt you out at the end. They stay all the way, and you get to walk all the way from Irad. You're going to see the Dead Sea, and I definitely recommend you going over to Ein Gedi and Masada as a day trip if you want to do that. But all the way from the Dead Sea, Irad, you're going to see Jordan, and then once you get to the last couple of days, you're going to see Egypt and Jordan, and then once you get to the end, supposedly you can see into Saudi Arabia. But literally, you could throw a rock into Egypt, so it's really cool. Africa is right there, and Jordan is just it's with you for days on end. I guess the biggest issue I had going into the trail, and I don't really do a lot of research when I do these adventures, so I don't know, that says a lot about me, I guess, but but the water in the desert. I always heard about people doing water caches, food caches, that kind of thing. I walked the trail without doing the water caches. Again, I walked the Pacific Crest Trail without doing, they have like bookshelf water caches. I didn't use those. I like to walk without them. I'm grateful that people that do that, so there is water there. But the water caches on the INT, my understanding is currently you have to pay for them, and you have to like call, email someone, and then they'll store your water for you. But I walked it without doing that. In the north, all the way down to Jerusalem, I said I'd probably only carried 1.5 liters of water. And again, that's just my style of walking, but you don't need, I didn't need excess amount of water. So I did about 1.5 liters for the day, and then at night I'd drink another 1.5 liters, that kind of thing. But once you get to Arad, let's see if I can, I'm taking too long to find it here. So it's right here on the map. So that section right there, and it's not a straight shot. You're going to zigzag back and forth all the way down. But once you hit Arad, that was my toughest water section. And from there, I thought it was going to take me 3 days. It's like 90 miles to Mitzvah Ramon. And it ended up taking me 4 days. So I made it to this fueling station called Oran. I filled up there with water. There's no food there, unfortunately. And then I realized I wasn't going to make it on the food that I had. So I ended up the next day cutting out and walking 6 miles round trip to a gas station. That's what's great about Israel. There's roads, there's ways to get help pretty easily. So I walked out 6 miles to a gas station and then came back in and then finished off to Mitzvah Ramon. But that really got me in that section, and I was carrying 6 liters of water at the time, and I thought, I should be able to knock this out, and I didn't. So from Arad to Mitzvah Ramon was the hardest section for water for me. And the hardest section for food for me was from Niyat Samander to Timna Park. So Niyat Samander, unfortunately, I showed up there at nighttime, right before this all-natural, there's this kind of a crossroads. There's an all-natural store there, and I'm a kind of potato chips, chocolate bar kind of guy, and they were selling granolas. So I had to live off granola products, very expensive granola products, for 1.5 days. So that wasn't my thing. I wish I would have planned that a little bit better. So the hardest food section was from Niyat Samander to Timna Park. And at Timna Park, you're kind of basically at the end, but they sell, there's a restaurant there. It's not a huge supply, but for me, it was, they sell Coca-Cola, candy bars, they have a restroom, running water, that kind of thing. So from that, I knew I was going to make the rest of the trail. But from Arad to Mitzvah Ramon, be careful with your water and your food. And from Niyat to Timna Park, be careful with your food in that section. I didn't realize, again, I didn't do any research, so I didn't realize you're going to be climbing down ladders and swimming through canyon pools. So I do think some of that was a bit nutty to do as a solo on your own. So maybe during those sections, right around Perrin, it was a kibbutz. I think it's a moshav now, but right around Perrin, they make peppers. you start doing canyon stuff, and just be careful around that section. Also, after you leave a rad, it gets a little more in the you need to be careful on your own section. But I think most people walk in groups anyway, so I don't know if that's a concern for you. But it was a concern for me after I did it. Security, I don't want to get too much into the politics about Israel, that kind of thing, but I felt secure pretty much the whole trail, even though I started at the Syria-Lebanon border in Mount Hermon. It was nothing in my mind what I pictured it would be like. I did have one run-in. It was somewhere along the trail towards the south, where I was in an ATV park and right next to a highway, and this van pulled up with two kind of young 20-ish guys, and the driver was just literally staring me down, and I was kind of walking up the road, and he's pulled over on me, so I had to get off the road, and so I walked behind him, walked the other side, he pulled over, and so this went on, and again, it's my mind that's racing. I don't know what they're going to do, if I should run, walk backwards, you know, that kind of thing. But I didn't feel like both of them were against me. The passenger didn't seem to want to harass me like the driver was, so I felt like it was a one-on-one situation, not on two-on-one. But it did freak me out for a bit. But other than that, as far as the trail, I felt secure again. I'm more scared of people than I am animals. I did go into Palestine, and I wear shorts and a t-shirt pretty much everywhere I go, so I did get a few stares, kind of things like that. I'd probably recommend going with someone else. I didn't go with anyone else, and I probably recommend doing more research than I did. I didn't do any research, that kind of thing. I just went to see Bethlehem and just jumped on the bus. But you do go through security with people holding guns and stuff like that. And it ended up biting me, kind of, I guess, if you want to say biting me, when I tried to leave Israel at the airport. They start asking you, where'd you go? Did you leave? Did you cross any borders? Did you go to Jordan? Did you go to Egypt? Did you go to the West Bank? That kind of thing. And so I started answering them truthfully, and then that got me into more security. It took me about 2 hours before they let me go, and they ended up, you know, looking between each of my toes without socks on. So I'm sure it's pretty gross for them after I'd walked all those miles with all those blisters and all that stuff. But as far as security, I felt secure, and I would definitely go and hike again. You know, so I can't say that I didn't feel secure. Again, it's always with people, and again, it was with groups of people, that kind of thing. Go southbound versus northbound. I really don't like to give, you know, go this way, that way, but starting in the north, it really helps you learn about the kibbutz or the mushavs, which are the towns, I call them. People always made fun of me when I call them towns. They're small villages, a couple hundred people. They have really small, medium-sized grocery stores. It's like staple foods. That's all it is. But it's great, but they're fenced in. So sometimes in the north you learn that there may be a back fence. Sometimes it's locked, sometimes it's not. You learn what kind of foods they have. And so if you want to go into, if you want to get resupply, or if you want to skip it. But it's great for the trail because it's fenced in. They basically can put the trail anywhere they want to, that kind of thing. Some of them are locked with a gated fence. You can't get in without a car. So that's something. And some of the ones I went into or you know, got into, I'm not sure they wanted me to be there. And other people seemed to enjoy that I was there. And that's the one trail angel I met, was in a mushav in the north when my feet were really hurting. People do want to help you, that kind of thing, but it's just like anywhere else in the world. You're a stranger to them, so they may not, you know, you may not you may not mix as well as you do with other hikers hiking the trail. But in the south, it really helps you. I mean, once you're going south, it really helps you understand the food, the water source. So when you get to that desert, you know where to get supplies. And if you start in the south, you're starting that section and not speaking the language, not knowing exactly where the best food and water is, that may be, I would say that would be definitely be more complicated for me. and the ending isn't as dramatic as looking at the Jordan Mountains, looking at the sea, that kind of thing. Trail Angels, again, I've hit on that some. They're all over the place. They're on the app. Knowing Hebrew is definitely going to help you with that. And if I could improve on the hike, again, I didn't take a tent and it rained so much, so I would definitely take an emergency bivvy if I did it this time of year again, just to stay out of the rain. The rocks, there's a lot of volcano rocks, sharp rocks, that kind of thing. I would have taken probably better shoes, and I wouldn't have lost my socks, and I would have made my feet a little more prepared to do all the walking. So if I can improve that, do that. Also, the time of day I went, when it's short, maybe 10 hours of daylight. So also having longer daylight, because I like to walk so much during the day, that definitely would have helped. And if you want to see photos of the trip, it's probably best to check out Instagram. I'll put a link under the video notes, and comment. Let me know if you need, if I can help you guys with anything else in another video. In 2 days, I'm headed to Chile, kind of where this red X is, to try to go all the way down to the south. So that's Aconcagua. Is that red X, but I stopped in San Diego on my bicycle, and I want to ride my bicycle down to the bottom of South America. That happens in just a few days. Again, follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and hopefully I'll make a video about the gear I am taking or took on that bicycle trip. All right, thanks.